I'm just wondering, who is the European Commission actually working for here? Is it Europe? Because I don't think so, to be honest. I really don't think so. Looking at the evidence of all the decisions that the EU is making, especially the European Commission is making, all the legislation that's coming out of Brussels, I honestly have to conclude that the European Commission is not working for the best interest of European citizens in European countries. No. I mean, if we look at all the plans that the European Commission is shoving down our throats, then I have to conclude that the European Commission in particular, and by the way, all European politicians in general, are not working for European citizens. No, they're not working for Europe. They are working for the Chinese and the Americans. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. They are working specifically for the Chinese and the Americans. I mean, let's look at the facts here. So the European Commission decided that, let's make all cars electric. Let's make all cars electric by, I believe, 2040, right? 2040. Let's make all cars in Europe electric by 2040. Because that would be good for the climate, that would be saving the climate. And let's just overlook the fact that actually those electric cars, the production process of an electric car is about 7 times more polluting when it comes to CO2 emissions than of a regular car. Let's also ignore the fact that that electricity that your electric car is running on has to be generated from somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. I mean, where does this electricity come from to power your Tesla or your BYD? Is it being pooped out by the electricity ferry? I don't think so. No. And the way I look at this, the way I see this, it makes no scrap of difference whether you tank your car full with petrol and then burn it in your combustion engine, or whether you tank your electricity generating plant full with coals or with whatever, or with uranium or plutonium or oil or gas or whatever, and then burn that and then feed that electricity into your Tesla or your BID or your Polestar or whatever, or your electric car, whatever brand the hell you want to buy, and that powers that car. It doesn't matter. What's the difference? The electricity still has to come from somewhere. The fuel still has to come from somewhere. So you cannot tell me that buying these cars, these electric cars, is actually good for the climate, good for the environment. You cannot tell me this, because it doesn't make any sense. It's actually horribly bad for the environment. It's bad for the environment. You know why? Because right now there are lots of cars on the road which are actually functional and driving. All of those cars, the millions upon millions of cars on the European roads today, are gonna have to be replaced by new cars. Can you imagine the expense, the natural resources that have to be invested in that? They have to be dug up. The rare earths, the metals that have to be dug up from Africa, for instance, and China, and everything that needs to go into building those new cars. That's actually a hell of a lot of pollution. A hell of a lot of pollution that can be easily avoided by simply taking the cars we have now and making them more fuel efficient. The math simply does not add up. And as always, everything that the European Commission does, in the end, the math does not add up for Europe. Because you have to ask yourself as well. So the European Commission decided that all cars in Europe have to be electric, fully electric by 2040. All right, fantastic, great. But where are those cars coming from exactly? Where? Well, we see where they're coming from. They're coming from China. They're coming from China, because China, they saw this and they immediately recognized the gigantic business potential. Because let's be honest, China's car industry so far, it's been a joke. It's been, well, I mean, largely it's been focused on China itself. But right now in China, they are cranking out the cars ready to be shipped to Europe. And you know what? We at this point already know that Europe's car manufacturers can't cope, won't be able to cope. And right now, Europe stands on the precipice of being flooded with Chinese cars. And it's already being flooded with foreign cars. If you look at the electric cars being sold today, the vast majority are not made in Europe, are not European brands. There are Teslas, which are American, by the way. And now you see also the Chinese cars coming in. Because Europe's car manufacturing industry has completely failed. To prepare for this change, this transition that's being forced upon it by the European Union. And they have failed for the simple reason that the Chinese have an unfair advantage over Europe, because the Chinese use slave laborers in their factories. That's a slave economy, which means that they can always undercut European producers in prices. And you know what? Europeans, stupid gits that they are, will go for Chinese cars because they're cheaper. Because, let's also be honest about this, electric cars so far have been so damn expensive, been so effing expensive, that nobody can afford them, except maybe through your job as a lease. Which doesn't mean they're more expensive, or more, it doesn't mean they're cheaper, it's just you spread it out over a longer duration. That's all. I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. And we see this in practice. At the, I believe last year, the municipal government of Paris, they decided, from now on, the only people who will be allowed to drive through Paris will be people with electric cars, because we're going to make all of Paris a gigantic electric zone where you can only drive with your electric car. And then it turned out that they had to say, well, actually we can't really do that now. We can't really do that. We're going to have to postpone that a bit, because actually nobody in Paris can afford an electric car. This is the stupidity. This is the stupidity right now. Because if the EU would actually give a damn about the environment, there's so many things we can actually do. There's so many things we can actually do to help the environment, rather than forcing this electrical nonsense. Because don't forget, electric cars are in principle a fantastic idea. The idea is lovely, you know, the idea is fantastic. I mean, nobody likes fumes. Nobody likes exhaust fumes. Am I wrong here? No, I'm not wrong here. I don't like exhaust fumes. Nobody, it's disgusting. But on the other hand, you have to ask yourself, is this technology, the electric car technology, ready for this to take over? And the truth is, no, it's not. Because Europe is already suffering through an electricity shortage. We just can't generate the electricity we need to power all these millions of cars, plus the electric bikes, plus the heat pumps, which also guzzle energy, plus all the mobile phones and the laptops and the computers and the talking fridges and everything else that's electric. Because don't forget, the European Commission has demanded, has mandated that everything goes digital. And you know what that means, everything digital? You know what that digital transition really means? It means more energy wastage, more energy consumption. That's what it means. This makes sense. Digital literally means more electricity needed to power your digital shit. So if we really give a damn about the environment, then we need to build down the amount of electricity we require. And how can we do this? Well, don't buy an electric bike. Buy a regular bike. Bike around using your muscles. That helps. Don't make everything digital. Don't buy that new iPhone. Don't buy a laptop when you don't need it. There are so many things you can do. So many simple, easy things you yourself can do as a European citizen to help the environment. And you know what? Marching in a climate march is not one of those things. No, it's not one of those things. Marching in a climate march does not actually help shit. It is hypocritical, because I know how this goes. You drive to the climate march in your Tesla, which was made by slave labor, by the way, and is extremely polluting in the end because of the amount of pollution that's being produced while this thing is actually being built in China by the slave laborers with resources which are dug up in the rainforest in Africa. Then you get out, you march along saying, "Oh, climate change now, climate change, we need to fight climate change. Government needs to do everything it can." And then, they get back in their Tesla. Then they are filming themselves with your new iPhone, of course, which is also incredibly pointless and unnecessary and polluting as shit. And then they drive off to the airport so they can take a flight to US or Thailand or Japan or whatever, because you still want to travel, you still want to go on holiday. I mean, this is bullcrap. It is so hypocritical. It's like the hypocrisy. It's galling. If you really want to help the environment, there's so much you can do. And I'm reminded of this, and I am reminded of this. I'm reminded of an old TV show. I don't know, do you remember Captain Planet? Captain Planet is Captain Planet, he's our hero, etc., etc. That was actually an interesting old TV show, and I'm talking old TV show. Like made in the 1990s. So old, to give you some perspective, that one of the main characters, she's from the Soviet Union, because at that point when this TV show was made, the Soviet Union still existed at that point. So you can see how old this TV show is. But I mean, there is a point to this, and the point of that TV show is basically to motivate children to take some positive action about saving the planet, saving the climate, doing like little things like cleaning up litter and stuff like that, and not polluting, and switching off your electricity and so on, and all these kinds of tiny little things you can do yourself. Take personal action, personal responsibility. And this is exactly what's not happening today, because people are marching in climate marches and following hypocritical asses like Greta Thunberg, and then do nothing because they think that they've done their job at that point without taking any responsibility, any personal action whatsoever, to just, I don't know, plant a tree or clean up some rubble or debris or whatever, or actually take the concrete out of your yard and plant some trees or whatever. Something simple. There's so much you can do, or volunteer for a nature organization. I mean, there are actually things you can do to help nature, and this reminds me of how incredibly hypocritical this is, and how the nature movement, the environmentalist movement, has been corrupted. It's crazy.